But it turns out, that white, just plays rook ef2 and is actually apparently +6, +7 up. So say it's check. So my queen has to go somewhere. So say, say I try and protect. I can't protect a7. So say it goes over to g5, and now white's just killing black with either f7 or queen a7. Say queen a7. I can't castle because I'll lose the bishop, and he's threatening queen b8. Say rook f8, f7 check, and he's starting to win back all his material because I'm getting mated here. Otherwise. So if I take here, then he just queen b8, actually more than just material. I think he's winning the queen or rook. Oh, the rook. So this is just totally, diabolical. So I'd actually missed. I checked this variation, 2-3 times, thinking, have I set a nice trap for him after rook c8? Turns out the trap doesn't work. So just taking here, because at the tail end he's got this cunning move. Not queen f2, no, I'm better, sorry. Just rook f2 here. So that's a surprising finding, which shows, I was fortunate not to lose this. If obviously another game, if I'd been playing Ribka another game, I would have just been murdered. So, but as it turned out, thankfully opponents make mistakes. It adds to the fun of the game. So g3. And I play now, not the most accurate move. I play h5. Apparently, again, rook f8 was good. But in this position, if we just go back before queen e3, I've got this pin on this rook. Apparently, the best way is just to immediately try and use that pin by playing rook f8 here. And I'm not getting mated, apparently, with, say check. Well, here is fine because I can pick up d6, I think, sort of fine, and I've blocked that f pawn. And the other thing I was a bit concerned about, I think, was this kind of variation, where I get mated horribly like this. But in fact, this doesn't need to happen. Here, there's bishop takes f6, and now the pin is really just simply being exploited on the f file. And if check now, I've got d8. So it turns out that actually, maybe his piece sack isn't that brilliant in this continuation after e2 because of this move, this very high precision move, rook f8. So if both of us were using Ribka, or able to use Ribka, we'd find obviously more accurate moves, which is why chess is a game, it's not a science. But by the way, I don't want to veer too much off this game, but there's a very interesting article called "Looking to the End of an Error," which I read in the newspaper the other day, talking about how biases cause errors and how assumption is the mother of all cock-ups. I'll quote you this: people have a poor understanding of how their perception works, and they tend to think it's more foolproof than it actually is. In certain forms of perception, there are consistent, provable biases, and those biases predispose us to make errors. But the interesting thing about the conclusions of the article, before we say that Ribka's God, Ribka's not God, because Ribka was programmed by humans. Anyway, its paragraph, I quote, "Computers are just as flawed because the programs are written by humans with the same biases as everyone else. So they show that they're also too optimistic with their results." Maybe we saw that just earlier in this game that Ribka 2.3 was really optimistic, with the piece set earlier, and it seemed that retreat bishop d8, all of a sudden it started seeing loads of resources for black. So maybe they are optimistic as well. Everyone's kind of optimistic, even engines which have the luxury of looking at millions of positions a second. So if we've all got biases, there's this constant thing about trying to reduce that bias. Maybe one of the things about my winning streak this season, as I mentioned in the previous video, I was trying to isolate some biases from previous losses, just like not trusting opponents even if they spent ages, trying to be cynical a bit of my own sacks because knowing that the opponent can counter sack. And what was another one? It was a video I did all three different ones, TCC, and catch up. You know, if you get obsessed by long-term positional plans, then you don't catch up to the details of positions. I'm sort of more aware of these three biases, but even so, the game is still, you know, flawed, because despite trying to, you know, calculate and recalculate this rook c8, I was convinced, you know, that it was okay when it wasn't. But in fact, in this position, I don't even need to go in for queen e3. Just using that pin is easier. Very easy to say now. Oh, just create the pin and just immediately exploit it with the move rook fa. I mean, this forfeits castling on the king side, and but it meets the needs of the position because that pin is it's a liability for white. So and as long as black isn't getting mated, then it's fitted into the position quite well. So anyway, I went in for the flawed line, so queen e3, and he just so he played that this blunder g3, and I played h5, and now he took, and now I just went back to h6, and apparently I'm worse here, but during the game I felt the worst was over. If I can castle, at least my king's not going to get mated. So knight d4, and I fling in a check. Maybe I should have just castled first. I'm not sure the major difference here. The reason I threw in the check, I didn't want him to stop the check, basically, and to put a rook on the first rank. And I wanted to keep opportunities for bishop c6, even though I thought king h3 was a good pigeonhole for the king. So, you know, if I got this h-pawn working, I thought that would be dangerous. But anyway, I castle here, and he surprised me. I mean, he had time pressure because we're at move 30 here, and the league is 35 in and out of court. He wanted to play the long version of the game with adjudications or adjournments. So he's got 5 moves to make, and this is a blunder. I think knight b3 it gives a big advantage to black, and happily, you know, Rybka likes this move as well. What I played, so I played actually I think the best move. If bishop takes f6 here, he just has rook takes f6 with a big advantage. Because rook takes f6, say, he just takes. Oh, not a big advantage actually, apparently, because bishop c6. Okay, this is not so clear. And now here, instead of queen takes, he's got queen f6, but actually bishop f3. This is interesting, and it starts to get a bit murky. All 0-0 here. You're wondering. So basically, I played a more incisive move here, just rook takes f6, because the sneaky thing about this is I'm threatening rook takes f2 and bishop takes h4, so I gain a valuable tempo as well as getting one of my pawns back. So instead of being like 3 pawns down for the piece, I'm now just 2 pawns for the piece. So rook takes, bishop takes, he plays queen b4, and I protect my first rank, knowing also that if he plays queen b7 now, I've got the sneaky bishop c6 check. Of course, he saw that. So rook f2, but I've still got now a liberated h-pawn, and you know the dangerous idea of h3 coming up. So I use that here. I just play h4. He plays check. It's not too harmful. I just move my king, and in fact g8 now is dangerous to use as well for white. So if he takes, I skewer his queen. He plays knight d4, and I play just this crushing h3 check. So if he takes the queen, with the queen I take, and then bishop takes d4. And his king's all over the place now after king f1. I just check, and it's like he's going into a mating net. Check, check, and he's totally in a mating net now. I'm drawing his king up the board with this queen b7. And he resigned here, because if... well, knight c6 is the computer way to save the position from a mate. One move away from mate, but he's going into e5 mate. So if king f4, just e5 mate. So after queen b7 he resigned. So it was a bit of a dramatic game there.